Okay, we're gonna go into a little video. It's not really a little video, but it's a video by Kurzgesagt. I think that's how you pronounce it. Sorry if I'm butchering the pronunciation, but yeah, this channel is very informative, very interesting, and I've seen a couple of videos that they've uploaded that I've missed, and I kind of want to see. So I was like, you know what? Why not see it on stream? Um, Kids, don't do drugs, but if you're an adult, do whatever do what you want, man. Do what you want, okay? Do what you want. This video is called "We Have to Talk About Weed." There's a lot of things you can talk about weed about. You could there's I'm just saying. Like are we talking about the garden weeds, or are we talking about Mary Jane? Are we talking about Mary and Juana? I don't. What are we talking about, man? Like, there's a lot. You know what? I'll let you talk. I'll let you talk, man.
Cannabis has been vilified to a ridiculous degree for the last century, but it's now finally being decriminalized in more and more places around the world. It's just recently been legalized in Germany, and for very good reasons. Compared to legal drugs like alcohol, which will cause 1 in 20 deaths just this year, cannabis is...
Just a quick pause. I gotta fill you guys in. You know what? A little bit of a story time. Little bit of a story time. During my break, that weekend actually, every Saturday I go out with my brother, sometimes my father. We go play pool. Maybe afterwards we catch maybe we go get a couple of drinks, then we go home responsibly. You never drink and drive. Never drink and drive. But no, it was actually during Thanksgiving. So on Thanksgiving, I started drinking around. Very irresponsible of me. You shouldn't drink or do drugs. But I started drinking around like 3 p.m. because that's when the family got together at my mom's house. We had dinner. Everyone was having a good time. And I started drinking. Well, it's a Dominican drink because I'm Dominican. My family's Dominican. So, yeah, it's called Brugal. But it's not just Brugal. It's like Brugal Legenda. And I think it's like 13%, if I'm not mistaken. Or I don't know. But, yeah, bro, I was like throwing them back. Drinking it like it was water. I'm a tank, okay? I can drink a lot. Okay? Without getting fucked. I know my limits. Okay? I'm a responsible adult. I know when I'm starting to feel tipsy, when I'm starting to feel good, when I feel buzzed. I'm like, hey, I'm buzzed. Don't give me any more. But you know what? There's different types of drunks, right? So there's people who get very aggressive when they're drunk. There's people who get violent. There's people who get sad when they drink. Me, I laugh at absolutely everything. I'm a happy drunk. Like I laugh at everything. I make jokes. Like that's the type of drunk I am. But I don't get drunk. Anyways, started drinking around 3 p.m. Just boom, boom, boom. Everyone else is like drinking moderately and drinking. They're like, oh yeah, we're tanks too. We can drink, blah blah blah. And then they will just sneak a shot of water in between, but they won't make it obvious, so whatever. But I was like, hey, I'm gonna go out later. I'm gonna play pool with my brother. So my brother goes to my mom's house and they offer him drinks as well. So we're all drinking, and I've already been drinking since 3. He got there around like 7, 8. And so you can already tell from 3 to 8, I was just drinking. By like 9 o'clock, we go to my father's house. He decides he doesn't want to go out. My dad has a drink. Well, every Dominican family has this drink, and it's called Mama Juana, right? Not marijuana, Mama Juana. It's basically this concoction of like some sort of leaves that soak up alcohol, and you keep adding alcohol to make the taste, to alter the taste, whatever. If you know, you know. My father, without my knowledge, thought, hey, it would be a good idea if I add marijuana buds to the Mama Juana. And I've already been drinking since 3, so I'm I'm kind of in the point of no return. I know I'm gonna wake up tomorrow and I'm probably gonna, I hope I don't throw up or have to deal with a hangover and stuff like that. But you know what? Yeah, he just threw raw buds in there. I don't know why he didn't tell me, but yeah, he's like, here, more drinks, and I'm laughing. I'm having a good time. I'm making people laugh. I'm drinking. I'm drinking and singing karaoke. Like I'm already, at this point. At this point, I'm like, it's not like you're drinking and there's like residual buds in your drink. It's like he put it in the bottle with the alcohol, and I guess I don't know. But anyways, yeah. So I'm drinking from 3. I'm like, oh, I'm already drunk. I'm already drunk. I'm gonna probably wake up tomorrow, but I'll deal with it tomorrow. Whatever. And he passes me a drink. Now, when someone is at like that inebriated and you keep giving them drinks, they're gonna drink that shit. So I kept drinking it like it was alcohol, and I was so far gone that I didn't even notice the taste of the marijuana. So yeah, after my dad's house, we went to a pub in downtown until closing. So from 3 all the way to like, I'd say 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock. We were just drinking. My brother is not as much of a heavyweight as I am, so yeah, he was. We basically parked in downtown, and he had to sleep for 5 hours. Like we left the pub at 2 o'clock, and I had to supervise him in the car until 5 o'clock in the morning, till he was good enough to, you know. The next morning, though, it wasn't the alcohol that fucked me up. I didn't have a hangover. I was high as fuck. I was zooted. I was on cloud 9. I don't know what type of fucking buds this shit was, but again, you shouldn't drink, you shouldn't do drugs, but the I you shouldn't do one or the other, but both at the same time is the worst experience of your life, because one side effect uh side effects cancels out the other, and it's like a tug of war between those side effects of a hangover and being high. And it's like you're too high to know that you're hungover and to deal with that, but your head is hurting from the hangover, but you're also floating. And I had to deal with that the whole day. The whole day till the next morning. It was terrifying. So yeah, I just yeah, I wouldn't even think the bud would work just being soaked up in alcohol. Trust me, trust me. It was yeah. Yeah, no, it works. It worked. I don't know what type of I don't know. I don't know. But that yeah, the whole day I was like I was sitting at the table like this, and I felt like I was floating, sitting down with my head down. Yeah, he bought some. I don't know where he got that shit. He probably went. He probably got Jack and the Beanstalk beans and climbed up that shit to this giant drug dealer that gave him. Yeah, yeah. Ah man, it was terrible. It was terrible. I thought I would just throw that out there because obviously he's talking about alcohol, he's talking about weed. But let's get back. Let's get back to the video. No more pausing.
Pretty mild.
Crazy
So,
experience.
to justify harsh prosecution and punishment, its negative effects have been wildly overstated. Naturally, there was a lot of pushback, and here's something went wrong. If you followed the discourse over the last few years, you might have got the impression that weed has almost only upsides and few, if any, negative side effects. We ourselves contributed to that narrative. What made this worse is that criminalization made it very hard for scientists to study cannabis, especially its long-term effects. They faced bureaucratic and legal hurdles, and studies often had to rely on small sample sizes. In the last few years, this finally started to change, so it's time to bring new evidence to the discussion. And, well, it's not pretty. While weed is still much less harmful than alcohol, it does have a dark side. It is more addictive than we thought and can have significant negative effects if you use it long term. It seems
Yeah, I've heard of this.
What are you
Like
doing?
if you're a
Before you tell us how dumb we are, please watch the video. To be crystal clear, we think prohibition doesn't work and cannabis should be legal, but this also means that we need to treat it as what it is, a drug, with unique upsides and downsides. So let's take an honest look at some of the latest research
I mean, yeah,
together.
of course, it's not gonna be all good.
Weed is getting stronger and stronger. Cannabis's magic juice.
Trust me, I know. You don't have to convince me, bro.
THC.
Like,
It docks on your cannabinoid
should I tell you the
receptors,
story of
affects
the
various
night that
brain
I
functions.
Thanksgiving night?
THC activates some regions and calms down others, creating a fun cocktail of sensations. The more THC, the more intense the high. And people seem to be into higher highs, or at least this is what the market is providing. In the US, Canada, and in Europe, the concentration of THC in legal and illegal cannabis products has more than doubled in the last few decades. While ever more potent strains are bred, products like edibles or concentrates with more than 60% THC have become increasingly common, while the share of products with less than 15% THC has declined. Unfortunately, just about every problem weed creates gets worse at higher THC doses. At the same time, more and more people use weed. In the US, more people consumed cannabis daily than alcohol for the first time in 2022.
That's crazy.
In Canada, 26% of people 16 and older use it, up from 22% in 2018. It's not possible to say if legalization is.
I don't
the
know
reason for
how
this, though,
accurate those
since
numbers
studies
are, though,
pretty
because, like,
inconsistent and vary massively between different users.
think about how many
In
like
some, consumption went up. In others, it stayed stable.
Teenagers
and the trend to
and
use
stuff
more weed began in the early
do it.
90s and sped up in the 2000s, way earlier than legalization. So today, more people consume more weed than ever before in the last century, and it's the strongest it's ever been. What are we seeing as a result of this? Let's start with something that used to get you laughed out of the
got
room,
insanely sick, like
addiction.
vomiting everywhere,
Weed
sick.
addiction and
When he
withdrawal
quit.
symptoms.
Oh,
A big narrative about weed is that it's not
Wow.
addictive, or at least not that big of a deal. And for most people, this is true. Studies clearly show that the majority handle it well. For 8 out of 10 using weed, it's just a casual high and not problematic at all. About 2 in 10 users develop a cannabis use disorder, or CUD. CUD has 11 different symptoms, from the inability to stop when you've had enough, to using it when you know it will have negative consequences, to tolerance and withdrawal. They can all basically be reduced to, you're doing it too often, even if it's bad for you, and it's less fun.
I'll be
than
honest
it
with
could
you.
be.
Let me pause real quick. So I have an uncle, right? I have an uncle, and he's like the known pothead of like my dad's side of the family, right? He would literally get home from work, smoke, never leave his room. Leaves his room to get some Gatorade because he had cotton mouth. Go back to his room. But it was like an everyday thing for the longest time. One of the advices he gave me, well, not only me, but everyone, is to not do it because it had long-term effects on him, like I don't know, like it. I don't want to say it killed brain cells, but he was forgetful, and I don't know, like, yeah. My brother, obviously, well, he smokes, but then he has points where he quits, but then he picks it up again and stuff. And he kind of expressed the same thing. Now, me, when I've indulged in it, mostly edibles, right? Because that's just, I prefer that rather than actually smoking. I just use it to kind of reflect and kind of it was a way. I haven't done it in a while voluntarily, but it was a way for me to wind down. Like, as I said, I'm someone that suffers from a lot of anxiety and depression, and I know sometimes they say people that are depressed and anxious, it can be very negative to do it because it would just enhance that and make you paranoid and stuff like that. But me, it has like the reverse effect. It actually brings me down and it makes me mellow and it makes me feel good and actually gives me a chance to think sometimes. But I don't do it, like, I only did it every now and then, you know. So I don't know. It's weird. It's weird. Okay, back to the video though.
There are three major risk factors here: the amount of THC, how often you consume, and your age when you start using cannabis.
Oh.
The more THC, the more often, and the younger you are when you start, the higher your risk. If you smoke too much weed too often, it will have negative impacts on your life. So if this is you, toning it down a bit will make a big difference. 1 in 10 users develops a serious addiction. They usually consume daily and their life is significantly impaired or held back because they spend a lot of their time either using or recovering from cannabis use. Since their brain is building a tolerance, they need increasingly high doses or stronger weed, often both. Studies found a variety of negative effects.
So
Heavy
what
users
would
can
be
experience
considered
bad
like a
moods,
high dose?
feel irritable, restless, paranoid, anxious, and even depressive. In a sad twist of irony, for many addicts it feels like they need weed to fight these symptoms. Maybe it did actually help at first, while in reality it makes those symptoms stronger and more persistent. Studies also found that loneliness and frequent cannabis use go hand in hand. If you feel lonely, you're more likely to use weed, and if you use weed, you may experience more loneliness. It's not always easy to say which came first, but they seem to reinforce each other. So on the one hand, cannabis makes loneliness feel much less bad. On the other hand, it can also make you feel more socially awkward than you actually are and withdraw from friends. This can lead to a downward spiral that ends in self-isolation.
I do that
and chronic
anyways,
loneliness.
dude. Like, I don't.
Another thing many people who consume a lot experience is a mental numbness that makes boredom feel okay because it impacts the reward system of your brain. Not great, but good enough. You can spend your days killing time binging mildly interesting stuff, being numb rather than having fun. Boredom is a signal to your mind to get creative or learn something new.
Like, yeah, there's some things that
This also makes
I
quitting
see.
so
I
much
see what you
harder
mean.
because your
Okay.
daily routines suddenly seem boring and unexciting, making it very tempting to go back. If you find yourself using constantly, this can also stunt your development as a person. The numbness dulls bad feelings, making it easy not to deal with them. But in life, you can only get over bad feelings if you actually feel them, and you have to process them to grow. Lastly, let's talk about physical withdrawal symptoms. The more you consume, the worse they'll be for you, especially if you use daily. Withdrawal can cause headaches, sweating or chills, decreased appetite, in severe cases even fever, nausea and abdominal pain. You might have trouble falling asleep, and if
Seems
you
like
do,
these are
you might have
specific
disturbing
examples
and
for
vivid
people who
dreams.
smoke flower.
The withdrawal can
Like
put you in a
having to take a
depressive
lot
mood
of
where life feels
to
daft and
smoke.
pointless. You can feel restless, angry, anxious, or nervous. You may feel unable to do anything at all. After a few days, these symptoms will begin to subside, and after a few weeks, they'll be gone entirely. The exact time depends on how much and how long you've been consuming cannabis. Now,
Damn.
let's get to the worst part.
What?
Weed may damage your brain.
Okay.
This section was
I was
not
gonna say,
fun to
like,
research
whoa,
because
worst
there's
part, like,
fierce
what do you,
debate among
death?
researchers how bad weed is for your brain and whether it has irreversible long-term consequences or not. There's no consensus yet, and it's hard to say anything definitive. Having said that, THC directly interferes with critical brain chemistry. There is some evidence that it may alter its structure. If it does, this may go away again if you quit after a few years, or not. We don't know yet. The consequences vary a lot between individuals, but especially for heavy users, they have a variety of potentially unfunny downsides. The most common one is that your memory gets significantly worse. Sustained heavy use may reduce
Any
your ability to
recreational
learn,
drug,
your
including alcohol
reasoning,
and nicotine,
perception,
is going to
attention span,
technically cause
decision-making,
True.
language
Yeah.
abilities, and impulse control. Most negative effects seem to go away or at least weaken over time after you quit, but again, we simply don't know enough and need more research. Where the evidence is much clearer is that consuming a lot of weed is really bad for teenagers on multiple levels. If you start using heavily
Even
early,
caffeine can
you have many
rewire the
more
brain.
years to build up
Yeah.
potentially negative side effects. Teens who use a
Yeah,
lot are much more likely to become addicted to weed. This may just be correlation, and
That's
weed
that's
may
the
not be
that's the
underlying
only drug
cause,
I
but heavy weed users are more likely to perform poorly in school.
man,
and
I
less
gotta
likely to
wean off.
finish their
Everyone
education.
tells me you gotta stop
They
drinking
are,
those
on average,
monsters
less
and stuff
satisfied
like
with
that,
their
man.
life and what they've achieved. This may simply be because if your memory and motivation are stunted, you have fewer interesting experiences and forget the ones you do have. And there is strong evidence that teen users are way more likely to develop mental health issues like psychosis, schizophrenia, depression, or anxiety later in life. Once again, the younger you start, the higher the risk.
Yeah.
And it also seems to rise massively with high THC doses, making highly potent cannabis products even more dangerous for teens. Okay, let's wrap this up. We've only focused on the negative sides in this video. That was the whole point.
Wait. Him saying that though, it kind of seems like it's just any THC product, even edibles as well. Like, I don't know. There's a couple things that he said that really, like, obviously surprised me. Not that I didn't know about it, but he brings up a couple points where I'm like, yeah, I see that, but also those are other examples of loneliness and whatever doesn't apply. Yeah. So you gotta, like, like I mentioned before, like, let's say you already, because I'm pretty sure a lot of people that do it already struggle with, like, anxiety, depression. Does that make it, does that, like, amplify it? Or, because he said, like, oh, later on they'll develop. Yeah, it calms my anxiety down too. And also, like, it doesn't, like, I don't know, because I spoke to my my brother and my sister-in-law about it, because yeah, I can't really go much into it, but it seems like everyone I would talk to about it would tell me like, oh, if you're anxious and depressed, like, yeah, it's probably, maybe it's good for sleep, blah blah blah, but to for that, like, everyone seemed wary, right? But then I did it and I was like, it actually helps, because first of all, like, the bad feelings, the bad thoughts, it kind of, like, as he said, like, not that it numbs it, but it doesn't give you a chance to actually dwell on those thoughts and stuff. Like, I don't know. As you say, it's different for everyone, but for me, in my case, it just mellows me out, gives me clarity. Um, and I don't know. Like, when I've done it, I've just watched anime, and I can argue that even watching anime, I don't know if entertainment just hits different when you are, but yeah, I don't know. It just it yeah, I don't know. It's helped me. Obviously, after therapy methods teach you dwelling, yeah, it makes 1,000 times worse. Yeah, like, I don't become dependent on it, and I'm not like, oh, I need it. Oh, hey, do you have more? Blah blah blah. But like, in the moment, I don't know. It's just okay. If things worse, we couldn't keep legalizing medically, to be honest. And medical community shouldn't be such a support in it. I mean, dwelling on an issue. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, anything without moderation is just bad. So,
As we said before, for most people, weed in moderation is totally fine and definitely way less harmful than alcohol. You do you, we're not your parents. The upside of moderation is also that when you do it, your experience will be more intense and special. But for teens, weed, especially using it regularly or a lot of it, is a bad idea, with potentially life-changing consequences. We know that criminalization did nothing to make this better. We now have a new chance under legalization. It begins with being open and honest about the state of science and acknowledging that weed is one drug among many others. Certainly not the worst one by a long shot, but also problematic for at least 1 to 3 out of 10 people using it. If you really have to try cannabis, there is a time and place, and that's in your 20s. If you're younger, the science is clear: don't do it. At least, not yet. You'll have plenty of time to experiment later.
climbs in time machine.
Let's do a different experiment now. With the help of today's sponsor Odoo, a business management software, you can do the first step of starting a new business in 3 minutes. Don't believe me? I bet you 5 ducks, and you and I...
Fuck it,
will do
I would watch
together.
Back to the
You can try
Future
Odoo
with
for
Cheech
free
and
by
Chong.
clicking this button here. The first application stays free forever with unlimited hosting
Ah,
and
it's
support.
broken too.
Let's select the website
Now,
application.
see,
to
now you
ensure
gotta
our
build
online
another
presence.
one in
Then
order
you
to
just
go
follow the
back to
website
fix that
configurator in
lever,
4 easy
and then
steps.
have
First, what kind of website do you want to create? It could be a business website, a blog, an event
I'm
website.
actually, you know what?
I'll put
I
down
like you, but
learning
I'm not gonna,
platform,
you
because
know, this is, come on, man.
took our ancestors.
Come on, dude. That was an interesting video. It made me think a lot. I don't think I have anything to worry about, but I can see like the points he raised, and well, I see both sides of the coin, but again, I feel like I was never dependent on THC, but there was a point in my life. I think I'll touch on it just because I think I've talked about it before, but I'll talk about it again because this topic has to do with drugs and stuff. So there was a point in my life where in 1 year I was in the hospital like 7 to 8 times. My health was like super in the shitter. Sometimes it would be so bad that I would be in like critical care. Other times I would transition to like intensive care. Sometimes I wouldn't even get to critical care. Sometimes it would just be intensive care. But the thing with diabetes, like I'm obviously I got type 1 diabetes. If you didn't know, now you know. But the fucked up thing about diabetes is that it's a silent killer. Not only is it a silent killer, but it affects everything. Everything from nerves to fucking liver to kidneys to whatever the fuck. It sucks. But if you have uncontrolled diabetes, that shit can fuck you up. That shit can really fuck you up. So, yeah, if you're a diabetic, do what you got to do. Try your best. I know it's a battle. Okay, there's a lot of diabetic fatigue as well. Trust me, I've been through it all. I've been through coma. I've been pronounced dead and had to be resuscitated. I've been in absolutely every possible like bad case you can think of with diabetes and blood sugars. But anyways, back to what I was trying to say. So one time during that year, I landed in intensive care and I had so much pain, like unbearable pain, that morphine was not enough to do anything. Like it did not take away the pain. So as any responsible fucking doctor, the dude was like, "Yeah, I'll just prescribe you some Percocets." I was like, "Ooh, okay. Is it gonna make the pain go away?" Yeah, it's gonna make the pain go away plus any other thing wrong with it. All right, cool. And during the hospital stay, like obviously the nurse would come in, "Hey, do you want to take your the pills? Are you in pain?" "Yeah, sure." Boom. And it actually helped. So this is where it went wrong. It was good while I was in the hospital. But they send you home with the pills. And I know a lot of people will probably judge. A lot of people would probably say, "No, you were just irresponsible." But it's common for people that get injured and get prescribed opioids, even if there's no injury involved. It is very easy to get hooked on it. But I have a high pain threshold, so that pain that I was dealing with was too much. So yeah, they sent me home with Percocets. And during that time, not only was I dealing with health issues, I was dealing with a lot of stuff during that time. So I was already weak minded and I was like, fuck it. I knew how that made me feel. So I would just pop one and zone out. Literally just be numbed out, not able to walk around anything. I would just lay down. And yeah, that would happen. Oh shit. Shit hit the fan. I can't deal with it right now. My brain is too fucked. Let me take another one and boom. And then it would just be a constant cycle. At the end of that year, I kind of said it, fuck it. I'm dependent. I can't really rely on this anymore. Like I gotta do something. So I came clean to my mom and I was like, "Mom, the medicine that they gave me in the hospital, this is what's been going on. I need to flush this down the toilet." And I did. And we threw away the bottle, the prescription. And yeah, after that, clean. Nothing. No more. None of that. Um, and shortly after the New Year's, well, the first day after that New Year's, I believe it was 2019. My childhood friend was the first homicide in here where I live. And yeah, I had to deal with that. I went to his wake, his funeral. Like, yeah, it was tough because I don't do well with death. That gives me anxiety. But having to deal with that without an escape, yeah. But yeah. If you have an issue, a problem, just know you're not alone. There's help. There's resources. There's people that care about you. It's better to rely on your support than it is on any substance. And yeah, even I know a lot of the times people might feel isolated from their support or the people around them that care, but just know that they're not the only ones. There's resources in place that you can reach out to and get help. And yeah, because the thing is, we hear so many stories where it becomes too late in some cases. And yeah, I don't know. I'm getting kind of man. I didn't think it was gonna bring back like, yeah, just know you're not alone. Um all right. Shit.